These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's The Beautiful Bag podcast. I am your host, and this week I'm coming to you again from the loft. Like I said last week, I need to start to travel a little bit more again, but I am coming to you from the loft. However, our guest, Nikki, is from Northern Ireland, and ladies and gentlemen, she is brand new to having an ostomy. Like, not, I think, a month, if at best, of having her ostomy. So this is going to be such a great conversation. And I cannot wait, Nikki, for you to start to share your story and then, what brought you to the point, and just in the short 30 days or short month, what you've experienced. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so privileged to be here. It's great.
And what's fun is we have been connected on social media, on Instagram, for a bit now, for a few months, maybe even almost coming up on a year. And I've watched your journey and what you were going through prior to everything. So why don't we start with that? Why don't you, talk to us about what was that like? What was it? What were you going through?
So life before my ileostomy, I want to say I was in a very, very dark place, although I felt quite positive about that. But my normal life had very much become in the house 24/7. I couldn't leave the house because every day for me, I was going through some type of bowel prep because my bowel wasn't functioning. So for toxic, I would have bowel prep on a Sunday. That bowel prep then would take maybe like 18 to 20 hours for it to actually filter through my bowel, and then a further 12 hours before I had any output from that. And then for 2 days after that, I would have periods where I would just all of a sudden get like a burning sensation in my back passage, and I would have to be in the bathroom immediately. And that would go on there for 2 days. So 3 to 4 days of my week was confined to the house. This bowel prep would put me in an absolutely excruciating pain. Even though I already was in pain, it just took me to a different level of pain. And then one day would pass after coming out of that period, and I would get like that would be my day of rest, my day of no bowel treatment. The next day, then I would get that sensation of there's something there, something needs to come away, the pain is building again, and I would have to use an enema. So at home, I was using a coffee enema kit. So I would filter that through the irrigation system, and then maybe the next day, I was back onto my everyday bowel irrigation. So I've been using a pump, an irrigation system for 3.5 years. Right from they started me on that irrigation system didn't work because I would pump in up to 12 litres of water, and I would get 12 litres of clear water out. So I would just sit in the bathroom for 2 to 3 hours, pumping in the water and letting the water come out. So it was unsuccessful, but I stayed on that journey every day in life using that because it was reminding my bowel that it was supposed to work.
So my now week is before we go, so is yours caused, was it just a slow colon? Was it something else that they found?
So I have been diagnosed all my life with IBS or IBS-C, IBS with constipation. I'd only ever had periods of maybe 10 weeks where my bowel didn't function, or 6 weeks and it didn't function, and then it would just regulate itself over again. And then in October 2020, I got a massive pain in my left-hand side. And from October 2020 until now, I've not had a poo myself. I've not been able to pass anything. So there was no feeling, no peristalsis, no muscle movement at all in my bowel. So if I tried to eat, within 10 minutes, I was screaming in excruciating pain, and the pain all stayed on the left-hand side. So it was in my descending colon into my sigmoid colon. And whenever they done CTs and scans, they would say, oh, you've got a large bowel obstruction. But whenever they would look, there was no physical obstruction, there was no twist in it, there was no mass in it. But they said you have some type of manual obstruction in your body. And what was actually happening was when the stool was passed through to the large bowel to be formed into poo-like substance, my bowel couldn't push it anywhere. So it was just backing up and backing up. So I would literally be full from my rectum right up to my stomach.
Wow.
So
And
yeah,
that's a lot. Now you have, I mean, you told your story on Instagram and you had to do a lot of advocating for yourself through this, um, being in Northern Ireland and being in pain. And so why don't we talk about that? Because there's a lot of people that may need to, we talk about advocating for yourself a lot.
absolutely. That's been a big part of my journey. You know, having slow colon transit, or what do you call it? Colonic inertia, intestinal dysmotility, whatever you know it as. Obviously it's very debilitating. So whenever I presented at the emergency room, I would be given high doses of pain relief and sent on my way again. And this went on over a period of a few months until I could take no more and my husband could take no more. And we actually went privately because here in Northern Ireland in the UK, our prescriptions are free. Everything is paid for. And so we would go to hospital, we would be sent away again. So we decided, right, we need an answer here. So we paid for this private consultation. And at that private consultation, it lasted 10 minutes. And he basically said, well, I can't see you, or I can't treat you until I would have a CT done of your bowel. But in the meantime, he scheduled one for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, and said, in the meantime, if you deteriorate in any way, get yourself back to the hospital immediately. 2 days later, my husband dropped me off at the ER because we were going into third lockdown here in the UK of COVID, and no one was allowed to accompany you. So I was left in hospital. They took me through immediately, and they looked and said, yeah, this is a large bowel obstruction. And when they done the CT, they said, nope, it's not a physical obstruction, it is that manual obstruction. So I was in hospital then for, I think, 11 or 12 days. I was in hospital over my youngest daughter's 18th birthday, literally on video, and that was it. Couldn't have any contact, and was just feeling woeful, on high doses of morphine to try and control the pain. When I was leaving hospital, they were discharging me to go home and take my usual laxatives and continue with my laxative regime. I then waited to see my consultant. And I think it was 8 or 10 weeks later, I had a telephone appointment with him because of COVID. And I was just getting the same thing over and over again. This is a really complex condition. This is a really complex issue. There's no quick fix. I can't sort this out for you. It's going to take some time. You're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to get used to it. And I thought, I don't have to accept this. I don't have to get used to this, because up until the middle of October 2020, my bowel had been functioning nearly every day. I was out walking with my dog 13 kilometers every day, and my normal bowel habit would have been every 2 weeks. But right up until this point, it was every day. And then it just stopped with this massive pain on the left-hand side. So I had the same consultant for a period of time. This was the consultant that I had seen privately, who then transferred me over to become one of his NHS patients. And I was just getting absolutely nowhere. I would come off the phone call, I would be in tears, I would be distraught. He's not listening to me. And he done two things for me. He referred me to have my colonic, my irrigation machine. And he did one other thing for me that he did not tell me about. And a few weeks later down the line, I received a letter from a clinical psychologist to tell me that I had been referred to him. Now, my consultant hadn't told me this. Now, I can respond one of either two ways: either fracture and refuse to listen to this clinical psychologist, or I can use it for my good. So I opted for the latter, and I made the appointment. Again, it was a telephone appointment. And as soon as I shared my story with him, he said, I'm going to teach you how to advocate for yourself, and we are going to get you somewhere in life. And that in that moment, even though that consultant had gaslit me and, made me out to believe this was all in my head and I was going to have to accept my circumstances, he was saying to me, realize where you are in life. Within 6 weeks, I had lost 3 stone in weight. I had become so malnourished that when I tried to stand up to go to the bathroom, I would collapse on the floor. If I tried to pick something up off the floor, I would fall over because I was so weak and I was really, really malnourished. Now, I wouldn't have looked malnourished because I'd lost 3 stone and I was still around 10 stone. But in my body, I knew I was really sick. And so this CBT therapist introduced me to what is known as the Patient Client Council in Northern Ireland. And that is a body who audit doctors, surgeons, consultants, hospitals, and they advocate on behalf of you if you need them to, and they will investigate your treatment. And so when I was on the call with him, he made me open up my laptop and look it up and open up the box to start typing in my complaint. And I just said to him, this is not in my nature. I'm not someone who complains. Yes, I want to get somewhere, but I don't really feel okay with making a complaint. And he said, well, if you don't do that, phone the hospital and speak to your consultant secretary and tell them that you're about to make the complaint to see what happens. And so I hung up the phone with this therapist and I made the call and I got an answer at the end of the phone. And I was really polite, well mannered. And I said, look, this is where I'm at. I need help. I have asked for a colonoscopy to be done. I have been willing to pay for a colonoscopy to be done, and I've been told that that would not be beneficial. I need to get somewhere with this. I cannot accept that this is life. I've become malnourished. I am very unwell. I need help. I'm going to make this complaint. And the lady said, leave it with me and I will come back to you. The very next day in the post, I received a letter dated with an appointment for another consultant the following Thursday. And I had a phone call to say, look, this was with my consultant. It was less than 1 minute. It registered on my phone for 59 seconds. And I said, well, let me bring you up to date with where I am at. And he said, there's no point because you're going to see one of my colleagues next week. She has more expertise in this and she will deal with your situation from here. And that was it. And I met with this new consultant the next week and life changed, completely changed.
So when you look back on this, you made a few choices. One, because he gaslit you without telling you he was going to have you see a therapist. And you chose, I mean, you saw my initial reaction. I was like, what? Are you kidding me? However, it was the best thing he could have done for you because this therapist then taught you, this is what you need to do to speak up for yourself. And pretty much held your hand to do it.
He did. I mean, he worked with me for 8 full months. You know, at the start, he spoke to me every week to see how I was getting on because I couldn't leave the house. And, you know, he was getting to the bottom of, why can't you leave the house? And I was like, well, it's embarrassing. You know, I take the dog for a walk. I'm on the beach. 1 minute I'm fine. Then I'm screaming in pain. I can't do that on my own. And so he taught me, right, okay, how do we get over these hurdles? So I was able to leave the house and I maybe like traveled and I sat on a towel in the car and thought, right, my family understand. If I have an accident in the car, you know, they understand what's going on with me. So through time, I was able to leave the house. I mean, there was times where I would be on a phone call. I would have to contact my mum or my husband to say, talk to me. I'm driving in the car. This pain has come over me and I don't want to collapse at the wheel. So speak to me whilst I do it. So I got braver and braver. And over a year ago, my business is online. I'm a wellness coach. I mentor people with fitness, nutrition, and their mindset. And so I was sharing my life online. And I never liked social media before this, but I had to become okay with it for my job. And I felt like a fraud because I would share my life Monday to Friday, you know, doing my exercises and looking that I was fit and healthy and well. But then at the weekend, I was doing my bowel prep and I would vanish. And so there was a moment where I realized, no, you need to become authentic. You need to become real. You need to share everything. So I decided at that point that I'm going to share everything on social media and I put it out there. And I think that helped with the journey of pushing and advocating more for myself because people were following me who were in similar situations. And I really appreciated the power of advocacy to realize that I deserve more. And that's then whenever I started to follow certain people on social media and connect with other groups. And I guess then I came across your podcast off the back of somebody else's interview. And I was pushed into even more advocacy at that point.
And all of this has happened over the last mainly the last 3.5 years have been just the worst part of everything.
Yeah.
So you finally get this new consultant. You're finally sharing your journey out online. And now you're learning more and learning more. You had this therapist that you worked with for 8 months to get you to get out of the house. Before we step any further, what were some of the things that he taught you in case someone is listening now and they may be coming up to the fact of, I may have to have an ostomy. I'm against it. I'm scared. And they're hiding in their homes prior to all this. What were some of the things that your therapist, if you want to share, a couple of tips or tools that he gave you to be able to work through that?
Mainly the first thing was the power of advocacy and doing that, and what I would achieve for myself in doing that. And the second thing was, addressing issues like, why couldn't I leave the house? If I left the house, what would happen? And it was things like shame that I was feeling, and I maybe felt guilty. And it was dealing with those emotions and how to process them, and ask myself, why do I feel that way? When I can explain to my family, this is exactly what I'm going through. I mean, they were nursing me, they were in the bathroom with me, they understood, but I still had that bit of embarrassment and shame that I needed to get past myself. And it was kind of accepting, okay, this is where I'm at, this is my current circumstances, and I have to be okay with them in where I'm at in order to have a better quality of life. So I would sit in the towel, I carry a radar key, or I carried a radar key with me then, and before I would leave, I knew where my next bathroom was. And I was accepting of, okay, there is a supermarket not too far from me. If I leave the house, I can get to a toilet. And then there was other things like, I maybe would be sitting in the car, and I wasn't able to get to the bathroom, and I would have to sit in the car a while longer because I knew if I got up off the seat, something was going to happen. And I had to just accept, okay, if this happens, I'm okay with it. And I can, like, what's the worst in the world? Yes, soiling yourself, but you can get into the house, you can get showered, you can get cleaned up. It is okay, and it was just the shame and the embarrassment that came with it. So he helped me conquer those hurdles. And as well as that, I was battling the idea of having an ostomy. So my nan, before she passed away, she had an ileostomy. She had had a bowel resection. She had really bad diverticulitis, and there is bowel disease in my family. So I was going through all of these ideas in my head. Do I have bowel disease and it's undiagnosed? Is there something more going on inside my body and they've not realized? Has the hospital messed up? Have they done these biopsies and messed up? Has someone not, read the results right? What is actually going on with me? Because I realized I was so unwell. And it was then pushing and I guess sharing with my new consultant, this is where I've been. And I deserve to have so much better in life. And right from the start, that new consultant was, we're going to get somewhere. I'm going to get you answers. You are going to have a better quality of life, no matter what this looks like. And she said, yes, there might be the idea of an ostomy down the line, but we'll conquer that one whenever that comes. And yeah, I just then, because I was looking at other people and connecting with other people online, I was allowing the idea of an ostomy just to creep in and be in my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way, then it was helping my mindset kind of adjust. Yeah.
It's amazing what social media can do for the good. I mean, I agree with you. There's a lot of it that's out there. It's like, not a fan of it, but we do it for business. A lot of times you do it for business and then you do it to be social, but there is a lot of good that happens because when you follow the right people and start to create the right community, the right surroundings, the right people around you, it can change your world. So you became okay. You started to become okay. This may be a possibility for me. And from working with that new consultant and her saying, we're going to get you answers, it wasn't too long before she really figured things out for you.
Yeah, it was about 6 to 12 months, whenever immediately she had me done, referred for colonoscopies and endoscopies. We had 16 biopsies taken, and between those biopsies being taken and the biopsies were all fine. In the next couple of months, I then was referred for a proctogram. I don't know if you've heard of a proctogram. Here in Northern Ireland, it's an X-ray machine that looks like a toilet, And basically they insert a type of paste into your rectum, which replicates fake stool. And they get you then to sit on this toilet. And you're behind a lovely screen and they talk you through it and advise you, okay, right, hold the poo in and then squeeze, try to push it out. And in that X-ray, when that was going on, the radiographer was fabulous. I was purple in the face because I was pushing and pushing and nothing was happening. And she said, we need to stop because it's evident to me that there's no muscle there. There's nothing working through your bowel. It's showing on the X-ray that there is no function. We need to stop because it's not fair on you. And between that being done in the December and maybe May time, she had referred me to speak to a surgeon because at home I was deteriorating. So by the month, my experiences would become a lot worse. So I would maybe have had bowel prep and it would have passed, but maybe the next 24 hours later, I would get a burning sensation or an urge to sit on the toilet, but nothing would happen. And so when I get out of bed, I would feel very, very weak. I would feel like I was going to faint in the moment. So I would say to my husband, can you come and just sit by the bathroom door for me? And then it got to the stage where he would have to be in the bathroom with me. He would be putting a cold face cloth on my head to cool me down. I was breaking out in a sweat. I felt like something needed to happen, but nothing could happen. And then I would, in between passing out, shout instructions to him to put the irrigation machine, how to assemble it. He didn't know how to do those things because I had been doing it myself. So he would be putting the machine together and then he would physically have to put the catheter into my bottom and pump the water in for me. And when that happened, there was a moment of, myself and my husband, we have a great marriage. We are very intimate. We discuss everything. But I felt exposed. I felt vulnerable in those moments because there's a line of what a husband does and doesn't do for you. And really he had no option, but many of husbands would have rang for an ambulance. They would have got you to hospital. They would have refused to do it. But Adam, he just was there and he done it. And hours would pass and we would be in the bathroom and then he would get me back to bed and I would come round and go, how is it in the middle of the night? And he would say, we've been in the bathroom for a long time. So that kept happening more and more in the latter months. And at that point, my consultant had referred me to the surgeon and the surgeon said, an ostomy is, that's the end of the end stage treatment. I'll review you again in a few months. And I went back to my consultant. She heard what was going on and she said, for me, this is end stage. Medically, I cannot do anything more for you. You need to have surgery. That much is evident now. And at that stage, even with the surgeon, things were difficult. I was getting the vibe from him that he would take away my quality of life, but he couldn't fully understand that I had no quality of life at that point. And so we went through another 6 to 8 months of this fight of me presenting at hospital, me being in hospital for 2 weeks at a time on high doses of morphine that still didn't control this pain. And to be fair, my surgeon had never dealt with a case like mine. He'd never created an ostomy for someone with slow colon transit or intestinal dysmotility. And he said, this is rare. We don't do it. My surgeon and my consultants were based in different hospitals. So in Northern Ireland, I was up against a politics case. So I was going from one hospital to the other, because my surgeon had gone in and laparoscopically and had a look at my bowel to see that there was nothing else going on. He was classed as my surgeon. So he was the one that I had to see. Okay. And it was just a nasty thing of politics going on.
And that happens. And that definitely, that happens. What were you doing from a food perspective for those 3.5 years?
So when the pain initially started in October 2020, I had been eating a normal diet. And when we got to Christmas Day 2020, I could only have a child's portion of Christmas dinner. And I really, really struggled with it. And then straight into the new year, I realized that every mouthful of food that I took was basically sitting in my chest. And then I would have a mouthful of water and I would feel like I was going to vomit. And so I was really, really backed up at this point. And I decided that I would try and just have soup. So I would have maybe 3 spoonfuls of soup and 2 crackers buttered for my dinner. And that went kind of from January until February, when I ended up hospitalized for the 2 weeks. In hospital, they would only let me have soup because I was so backed up. And I was obviously dropping all that weight. The 3 stone came off me in that 6-week period. And then after I was discharged from hospital, I couldn't even have soup. I was struggling to have water. And so I had a friend who had Crohn's disease, and they had been taking a thing called modulin, which is for when someone is in a Crohn's flare up, they come off food and they go on to like this liquid powder diet. And it just basically lets the intestines heal for a while and gives them that period of relief. And so I opted to buy my own modulin to see if it would help me. And I very quickly realized within a week, my pain is subsiding. I feel a lot better, but I don't feel strong. I don't feel healthy. And I explained this to my first consultant, and he was, you shouldn't be taking that stuff. That's for people who have an IBD. And I said, but it's giving me relief.
Mm-hmm.
I feel much better. I can't eat and I can't drink, and I feel better on it. And then as soon as I was transferred to the other consultant, immediately she put me in contact with a dietitian and nutritionist.
Mm-hmm.
They started to look at my diet to see what I could and couldn't eat. And food then was just removed. I couldn't eat fruits, I couldn't eat vegetables. They're all things that stimulate the bowel, so they were aggravating my bowel. And so I was put onto this liquid only diet. So for pretty much for 3 full years, I'd been on a liquid only diet right up until my surgery. And that entailed 4 shakes a day, and it contained all my vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. But even towards the end, I couldn't drink 4 shakes a day. It was too much. So I was maybe having 2 shakes a day. And then we were trying other little shots of calories. And again, it was milk-based. It aggravated my bowel and I couldn't take it. So I would suck on plain chocolate to try and get my calories up, a little bit at a time, which I was happy about. But it obviously wasn't all the nutrition that I needed. So I was really, really malnourished right up until surgery.
And your surgery was a month ago.
Surgery was on the 26th of January.
And woman, you look fantastic and healthy and happy. What? It's only been a month or 6 weeks.
For 32 days.
32 days. 32 days today. Congratulations. What is this last month? I know that right after surgery, you had some issues. You had to have an NG tube. You had some things that happened right from surgery. But so you really probably, it's been 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks that you had food. What was it like to have food for the first time, and what did you get?
So my first meal was day after surgery. I had surgery on the Friday afternoon. Saturday morning I had porridge, and it was divine. It was so, so good. And for lunch it was soup, but it was soup that I hadn't been able to have in three plus years. And then I had 2 potatoes for dinner with some gravy. They tasted lovely. People here in Northern Ireland say, how can you eat hospital food? It's stinking. But to me, it was just heaven. It was so, so good. And then the next day I started to get really ill. Yes, I had those complications. But once I came through those complications, I had 2 potatoes before I got sick. I wanted potatoes again. And so things like cottage pie and a roast chicken dinner with maybe carrot and parsnip mashed, those are all been things that I have been able to have and taste absolutely amazing. It's getting all of those tastes back. Just last Friday, which was day 28, week 4, post surgery, was the first time I was able to go to a shopping centre with mum, and she said, do you think we could have lunch out today? I was like, yes, let's do it. And it was just a white bread sandwich that I had. It was chicken and cheese with barbecue sauce, but it was absolutely beautiful. So, so tasty, like nothing I've tasted in 3 years being on shakes. And I had some potato salad with it. Yes, I couldn't have the skins off the potatoes, and I couldn't have the spring onions, but I picked them all out, skinned the potatoes, and I ate all the rest. And I cleaned my plate. And it was an emotional moment. My mom videoed it, and she did shed a tear, because these are just moments that we take for granted in life, waking up, having breakfast, having lunch, going out for a meal. Those are things that I have not been able to enjoy for 3.5 years because socially, everything here in the UK revolves around food, as it probably does in the States. And people, whenever you can't eat, they write you off. They don't invite you any longer for dinner. They don't invite you for supper because 24/7 I was in pain. I couldn't be there, or I was unpredictable with the uncertainty of my bowel and how it would be. So to be able to do those things now, you know, in the last 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks that I've been out of hospital, life has changed. I can, say to my husband, can we nip to the shop? Can we nip to the supermarket? I don't have to plan it into my week around bowel prep. And we can just like, what are you having for dinner tonight? Both my girls are off at university, so they're no longer at home. And dinner had become very boring for my husband because for a long time I was making his meals, and then in the end he would just say, "Don't make me dinner. I'll make it when I come home." So to make a joke of, "I can't wait to get my wife back in the kitchen," is very real. I don't mind him coming off with that joke because it's nice. It's lovely that I can walk to the shop, I can pick something up for his dinner, and I can put dinner in the oven. As basic as it is right now, being on low residue, but we can have dinner together. We can sit down and have a meal together in the evening, and that's life changing for where life has been in the last 3.5 years.
This story, this outcome it's so enlightening. It's so inspiring. It's so lovely to see you on the other side of it, because going through a struggle is never an easy thing. And sometimes we just need to sit in the struggle because the other side it's hard to go through, but it's lovely on the other side of whatever the situation is. And how has it been for you? Because you said you were worried about having a stoma, the stigmatism around having it. You were working with, listening to people talk on the podcast and following people on social media and seeing everybody live their lives and living out loud even more and more. How was it for you to see yourself with your stoma for the very first time?
It's crazy actually what happened because even though I was in the mindset of I was accepting and I'm a person of faith, so I got to the stage where I'd said, right, I'm accepting if having this stoma is my miracle in life, and I'm okay with this. It's going to be used for the greater good. It's going to be used for a bigger experience, and but going in on the morning of my surgery, I had said to myself, I feel strong about this. And I had actually had a practice stoma. So they had given me this little kit to come home, attach the stoma, do a bag change, to become okay with it in the couple of days beforehand, which was brilliant. But even on the morning of, I was still in my head, people see me as a strong, positive person. I just, I said on my social media, guys, I mightn't be around for a few days. I want to be present, and I want to share this with you. But I also acknowledge that I might not be okay once I come round out of surgery, and I might not be able to actually look at my stoma for a few days. And when I came round in the recovery ward, it was late in the evening, so there was only myself and another lady who had her hand in plaster, so it was evidence she'd had hand surgery. And I could hear a conversation happening, and it was my nurse doing a handover to another nurse. And I heard the line of, "No, she doesn't have any other ports or drains. She just has her stoma." And I, in that moment, thought, wait, there's only two people in recovery. They can't be talking about me, because I've been warned that, this was going to be done I can't even say that word right now, laparoscopically, and that I would have drains in those wounds, and that my stoma would be in a clear bag, for them to see the output and be able to look at it. And when I heard this conversation going, something inside me was just nosy. I sat both upright in the bed. I pulled the bed linen down, pulled my gown up, and looked at my abdomen in pure shock, because there was no other wounds. There were no drains. What they had done was, where they had sighted my stoma to be, they had cut that, gone in with the camera through that hole and pulled out the small bowel and basically created my lip ileostomy through my site. So I was gobsmacked thinking, how has this even happened? You know, I am so blessed. I'm so fortunate. And in that moment, I didn't have a clear stoma bag on. It was closed. So I pulled the flap open and I had a good look in straight away so I could see my stoma. And then I lay back down and thought, you've just looked. So that was on the Friday evening. On the Saturday morning, I was draining my own bag. I was emptying my bag itself. And by Sunday evening, the stoma nurse had come around and she said, are you ready? We'll do a bag change. And my husband and my daughter were in the room at the time. And I thought, are you guys going outside? And they kind of just stood behind me as if to say, we're not going anywhere. And so I thought, okay, well, if they're brave enough, I'm going to have to be brave enough here.
Mm-hmm.
Doing this together. And, you know, in the moment that the stoma nurse, you know, put the adhesive on and took the bag away and I looked, I just thought, that's a cute little rose. You know, this is gonna, you know, save my life. It's gonna put me out of a lot of misery. And for me, by the time Sunday evening came, I had had no bowel pain. I woke up out of surgery. I'd gone into surgery on high doses of morphine for my pain. And when I woke up after surgery, I didn't need the follow-up morphine the next day for my bowel pain. It was totally gone. So I was like, okay, something is right and I'm okay with it. Mm. Then the next day I got sick and I couldn't look at it for a few days because the nurses had to do everything, but I was still accepting of it and them doing the bag changes and cleaning things, but I got stuck right in straight away. And that came from, I was accepting of it because, well, the lovely Amalia, the Ostomy dietitian as she is on Instagram, that was how I found this podcast. This was how we got in contact because she had followed me for some reason on Instagram. And I thought, why is she following me? But it was one of my hashtags to do with my job and fitness and things and nutrition. And it was obviously one of hers. So I came up on her feed and it was pure nosiness. I wanted to learn more about Amalia. And in her bio, the first thing in her bio was hear my story. And it took me to hearing her story, which was my story, the exact same story. And she was just further on down the line. And I couldn't believe it. So that had brought me to the Beautiful Bag podcast. And I reached out to Amalia and I said, thank you for having the confidence and being bold and sharing your story, because although you're in the States, you have impacted me, little old me in Northern Ireland, and your story is the same. And Amalia voice noted me back and she said, thank you, the hairs on my arms are standing. You know, I cannot believe you're the third person to come into my life with the same issue. And she then put me in contact with other people who I since heard their stories on the Beautiful Bag podcast. So every day for the last 68 months, I have filled myself with listening to a podcast from this platform. And I don't want to get emotional, but that has been the biggest thing for me, getting yourself into a positive community where people have heard the same theme over and over again. My ostomy gave me back my quality of life. And so that for me was my mantra. That's what I took on. And I thought, my ostomy will be giving me back my quality of life. And I said to the surgeon, take a chance on me, just take a chance on me. And he did. And here we are. Life is so much better.
You're going out. You got dressed up the other night and you went out all in your silver dress, guys. And you're going to, if you go to my blog, you're going to see her in her silver dress. If you go to Nikki's, I was going to say YouTube channel, Instagram page, you're going to see her all dressed up and living her life. Make sure you follow her. I'm going to have her information in the show notes as well. Woman, you're living life now. And I am so, so thrilled and happy for you for that. I'm so thrilled for you.
Wearing my silver dress was my daughter's 21st birthday. The same daughter who was 18 and I was in hospital. So I was hell bent on getting out of hospital and making it to her party. And I said, even if I show up for 30 minutes or an hour, I want to be there. And that was my first outing out of the house, hair and makeup done, a bodycon dress. And I thought, I'm going to own this. And I actually lasted for a few hours, and pretty much most of the night. It was amazing. And I felt incredible. So when I say I feel amazing, I cannot remember the last time I felt as fit and healthy and well as I do. And it's all because of having my ostomy.
I am so, again, thrilled for you. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It was a journey that you had, and you are making an impact on people already, and you're going to make more and more of an impact on people as you go through and share this journey with others. If there was, and I ask everybody this, if there was just one thing that you wanted to leave our listeners with, what would that one thing be?
That one thing for me is mindset and community. They are my secret. Get yourself into a healthy, positive community. If you know that you're someone who is dealing with bowel conditions of some sort, or there is the possibility of surgery in your future, find those ostomy groups, get yourself into Facebook groups, connect with people on Instagram, connect with people on TikTok, and soak up everything that you can to learn and educate yourself. And when you get yourself into those positive environments, what is actually happening is you're planting the seed for positivity in relation to that surgery. So when you get yourself into a healthy community, you learn that there is hope, and that you deserve a hope, and that you can advocate and take control of that and push for the life and the treatment that you deserve. So mindset and community are my thing.
I love it. What a beautiful way to leave this episode. Nikki, thank you again so much for being here with us this week. It really was such a beautiful pleasure to see you. I always call Zoom now in person because it's live.
I love it.
I do too. I do too. So thank you so, so much for being here with us this week.
Thank you for everything.